Okay, welcome to the next installment of Civil Disagreement. We've been on hiatus for the last 3 months or so. Our last show was on the coronavirus, and I actually began that show with a joke, basically saying that Michael and I were not in the same room because honestly, we didn't know where Michael's been. Uh, a week later, we aired it, and the week after that, I had it. So I ended up in the hospital. Um, so we're now back on the air. We tried to get together for the past month or so. Just a lot of family things happening for both of us, and we just never made it happen. But hopefully, we get back on schedule now. So today, what we want to talk about is the coronavirus. We're going to talk about the exact same thing, only now that I've been through it, including hospitalization and ventilator and the whole bit, uh, and just kind of what's happened over the last 3 months or so since we did that last podcast, just to do a good follow up on it. So, Michael, you want to have anything you want to add there?
No, I mean, pretty much, I'm sure everybody in America has been affected by the virus in some way, shape, or form. You know, whether you know somebody that got the virus, was treated for it, and hopefully uh, they didn't pass or die from it. But to the government to the mandatory quarantines and shutdowns, to people losing their jobs. I mean, if you live in this country, you were affected. I mean, if you're on the planet in some way, shape, or form, you got affected by it. I don't care if you live in the jungle somewhere. Some kind of way it had to affect you. So it
Yeah.
is what it
Okay. So the first thing we want to go through here is actually what my entire experience was. Like I said, we aired the podcast a week later. My family was here to visit. Uh, my two daughters and their significant others, and my grandchildren. Uh, and we had a good time, but I caught what I thought was nothing more than a head cold. And I mean, it was just a lot of runny nose, sneezing, things like that. Uh, I didn't actually go into the hospital for the COVID-19. What I went in for was back in January, I had diverticulitis, which is an infection in the intestine. My follow up was done with a surgeon, even though I didn't actually have surgery. And he said, here are some of the warning signs if you get it again. And during this time, I went to the bathroom. I won't get into all the details. You don't want to know. But I was showing some signs that maybe I had the diverticulitis back. So because I realized how I now knew how dangerous that really was, I told my wife, we got to go to the emergency room. I got to get it checked out and just make sure that's not what it is. So we went to the emergency room, but because we were already into the coronavirus at that point, and this was April 1st, early in the morning, uh, she couldn't go in with me. So I went into the emergency room. They listened to my lungs and immediately put me into a hospital bed. I had pneumonia and they could already hear it. Again, I just thought it was head cold because actually my breathing wasn't affected other than I couldn't breathe through my nose.
is. Yeah.
So that was April 1st. On April 3rd, all I really remember is sort of waking up and somebody telling me, we have to put you on a ventilator. And do you want to sit up to take off your shirt or can we just cut it off of you? And I was feeling so bad. I didn't even want to sit up. And my other thought was, I have a shirt just like it, just, just another color. So
Yeah.
yeah, cut this one off. I'm good. Just do what you got to do. And the next thing I know, it was 6 or 7 days later. I'm waking up. I got tubes down my throat. I got a doctor in my face saying, "Here's what's going on right now," and I didn't even realize I was out for all that time. I
Wow.
actually, honestly, I was the sedatives that they were giving me were actually causing me to hallucinate too. So I believe that I was unconscious for over 3 years. I was actually part of the hallucination was I was on a black ops military base somewhere in Colorado or Arizona because I'd look out my window and I could see the trees in the background actually moving. And I mean,
Wow.
it was a pretty wild hallucination. And then I see a black helicopter land. Now, up to this point, I saw no cars, no trucks, nothing. I see a black helicopter land. Now, what's weird about this is the fact that the helicopter was real because my
Right.
window actually overlooked the heliport for the hospital. And after that, I started seeing black cars and white vans like all over the parking lot. And so I was convinced I was on this military base. And uh, when I finally got my cell phone back, I texted a friend of mine I knew I could trust. I said, "What's the date?" And he said April 9th. And I'm like, "What year?" And he sends back 2020 with a question mark. Like he had no clue what I was actually asking, I guess. But I honestly thought I was out for years at that point.
Wow.
Anyway, I won't get into the whole hallucination. That would take another 2 hours to go through. But with all that going on, I really wasn't fully understanding everything that was going on with me. They told me at some point that they were going to remove the tubes from. I had already exasperated the feeding tube up into my mouth, but I had lost so much muscle mass I couldn't even pick my hands up to point to my mouth to let the nurse know that the tube was now in my mouth and no longer in my stomach. So
Wow.
every time they would give me the liquid nutrition, it would go in my mouth, and then I would have to swallow it, which was actually kind of good, only because I had to relearn how to swallow anyway. And
Yeah.
after choking the first couple of times, I learned to swallow, and it actually I think it made the transition back out of the ventilator a lot easier on me. Uh,
Yeah.
and what I didn't realize, interesting statistic, was that only about 10% of people on ventilators with COVID actually made it out alive.
Oh.
So I was one of the lucky ones. I had no pre-existing conditions other than I had pneumonia when I was 13. I did suffer some lung damage because of that, and I was told I will be prone to a pneumonia. So other than that, though, I mean, I've had pneumonia several times throughout my life,
Mm.
but this one never a ventilator.
Yeah.
And now they're actually thinking ventilators may not be the best way to go for COVID, even though there will be cases where it's necessary.
Okay.
I was in the hospital. Let's see, that was the 9th. I got out on the 15th, and I lost 40 pounds. And as you can see, I'm kind of skinny to start with because I have put 25 of that bag on.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I lost so much muscle mass. Well, I had no fat to lose, so of course it was going to all be
Yeah.
muscle.
I saw the pictures that Barbara put up of you, trying to get back walking around with the walker and everything. I was like, wow, he
Yeah,
is skin and bones.
yeah, yeah. Well, 40 pounds. I only weighed 180 going in,
Yeah.
like 140 coming out. And yeah, and actually, when I came home, the reason they sent me home when they did was uh, I couldn't get physical therapy in the hospital because they were running short on the gowns and all the masks and all that kind of stuff. So physical therapy was considered a secondary thing to actual care of people who needed other stuff. So they couldn't send physical therapy in to see me, and they didn't want to release me till I could at least walk to the bathroom.
Yeah.
That was like the big concern, even if I had to have help to get there. But I couldn't even sit up by myself. I mean, I was just
Wow.
that weak. And so when they brought me home, they put me in my recliner, and that's where I was. Yeah,
Man, I know that felt good. I know you were like,
it was better than the bed, but at the
yeah.
same time, I couldn't do anything. I mean, my uh, had to use a Gatorade bottle for going to the bathroom, and
Man.
um, but my physical therapist. Well, that was the thing. A physical therapist could come see me at home much more easily than in the hospital, and that was the reason they let me out. So all he had me do was, just pick my feet up, put them down, pick them up, put them down. I had to do that 30 times a day. And of course, I don't do anything halfway. So I was doing it 50 times a day. But then he came a day or two later to actually be physically with me. And he helped me stand up and walk. And he basically had to hold me up. I just didn't have the strength. I couldn't keep my body straight. All of my back muscles, all my core muscles were so weak. I couldn't do anything. Uh, I got to give a shout out to the guy. He was awesome. He and my home health nurse, she was awesome too. The physical therapist pushed me pretty hard. I pushed myself too, but he kind of gave me the encouragement to do that. And he expected to discharge me after 8 to 10 weeks. And actually, because I pushed so hard, after 4 weeks, I was physically able, where he was able to just discharge me at that point. The deciding factor was I had to walk 6 minutes without help or stopping. And
Wow.
you've seen in my house, Mike.
Yeah.
Um, it's not very big. Do you know how far you walk in 6 minutes?
Yeah.
Luckily, we had those extra doorways so you can walk in circles, and
Yes.
and I would make a U-turn in the living room and go back a different way just so I'd see something different from a different angle. But I had to walk for 6 minutes, and yeah, once I did that, then he was like, "Okay, the last challenge was getting up our driveway, and our driveway is it's kind of like this.
Yes.
I don't know what
Yeah.
name thing, but
Yeah. That is serious. That's serious.
I mean, healthy people have trouble with it.
Yeah.
And no, I made it to the top of the hill, and he wanted me to do 2 laps in the cul-de-sac. But I made it to the top of the hill. I'm like, I got to stop and breathe. I was just that winded.
Wow.
We did 1 lap in the cul-de-sac, and I said, I'm done. I can't go any further. Now the next challenge was I had to go down the hill. And everybody says, going down the hill is so much easier because you got gravity. Nope,
No, if your
no.
legs are weak, yeah.
First of all, it's a different set of muscles, and second, you
Yeah.
fight the gravity and put the brakes on. So it was actually a lot harder going down.
Yeah.
Uh, and well, yesterday I walked 3 miles. Day before 5 miles. Day before that 4 miles. So I'm trying to walk between 3 and 5 miles every day at this point.
Cool.
Still got my arms to work on, but overall I'm good and healthy. Like I said, that was way back April 15th. I got out of the hospital, and where are we now? We're at July 11th,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty much back to normal. I will say I have one residual effect, and oh, Michael knows this about me, but I have like this really huge vocabulary. But since I was on the ventilator, I have difficulty pulling up words sometimes. So it's been a very frustrating time for me as far as that goes. It doesn't affect my thinking at all, but it does affect my language. So in case I get stuck on a word, you're going to know why.
Cool.
So next thing we got on the agenda here, that was my experience, but what was going through your mind, Michael, while I
I
was?
mean, it was. I mean, the whole entire time he was in the hospital, I was praying. I mean, that was a pretty scary thing, Kevin. And as far as outside of that, my girlfriend, she it just seemed like it was bad news just kept coming. There was the last time we were up in Richmond to do a podcast with you. Um, Javon, that's my girlfriend. She was supposed to meet a uh, meet her stepfather, and then found out after the whole COVID thing that he passed away. So that affected her. Then she got another. She got another message through social media. She contacted somebody else. Somebody else passed away, and somebody else passed away. And it was just like wow. I consider myself blessed because nobody in my immediate family, not necessarily circle, but in my immediate family, had caught it or anything. I guess everybody's taking precautions that they need to take. Um, the whole wearing the mask, going out in public. I know while you were in the hospital, me and Javon were still out and about, still trying to, do business. Wearing a mask. And what I found crazy was, here it is. I got a friend in the hospital. We understand that the virus is real. We know that. We never thought it was fake, despite our opinions about how the media was handling it. And it was crazy waking up, seeing stuff on my timeline where people were literally saying it was fake. Now, we're not going to talk about the political leanings. Okay, I don't care if you lean right, left, whatever. It doesn't matter. It was a straight fact that people were out here posting on Facebook and in social media just talking about literally that the virus was fake, it was not a pandemic, blah, blah, blah. Whatever your reasoning was, that's what they were posting. And then some of these people I, knew. Like I could literally call them up. And all of a sudden, while you were in the hospital, it turned from, okay, this pandemic is fake to, oh my God, why are people walking around with no masks on? You just said last week this was fake. You just said last week this was fake, and now you're blaming people for not walking around with masks. Like that's where I'm like, man, I cannot. Like, how do you have a civil discussion with somebody like that? I don't understand, but that's basically, like I said, we prayed, we watched, we didn't. I didn't post a lot because I wanted to give your family respect to share what they wanted to share publicly. I hate it when people get information about somebody that they care about and they just blast it all over social media without, letting the immediate family or whatever figure out what they're going to do with it. You know what I'm saying? So, props to Barbara and Sarah and everybody and everything. And as the news started coming out, when I saw that they were publicly, because I was checking in, Javon was checking in also, as the news started coming out that you guys were getting better, I was like, yes, okay, we're good. You know what I'm saying? We only get one statistic mark against, you know what I'm saying? Like, he got it, but that's it. That's the only statistic you guys get to get. He got the virus, that was it. You're not getting nothing else.
Well, I get the ventilator badge, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you get the ventilator badge. Yeah, you get that. So, but yeah, man, it was crazy, man. Everybody checked in. I made a post when Barbara put it public. I made it public, put it on my page, and literally people I haven't even talked to on social media was checking in, like, oh my God, I hope your friend is okay. Hope your friend was okay. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, thank you, appreciate it. So people were aware. They were aware. I just thought it was ironic that mature, grown, free-thinking, prominent citizens of the United States of America were literally posting that it was a hoax and this virus was not a pandemic. It was just not that serious. And then a week later, you are literally chastising people on Facebook for walking around with no masks. Like, I just thought that was crazy. Like, for real. But yeah, let's get to your radio interview, man. Okay. Yeah, because that. So everybody, I just want you to understand, like, we have been consistent in our disagreement, our civil disagreement of how the media handles its news reporting. Period. End of story. We're just going to leave it there. So, in that, they again prove that they are a narrative, commentary-based TV show instead of being a news media outlet. We feel as though it is our opinion that we do agree that news is not news anymore. It's just more narration and commentary for entertainment purposes than anything else. And Kevin's interviews prove it. So we're going to get into that.
Okay. So this is not the radio interview. This is actually the TV interview. There were 2 TV interviews done. The first one was while I was in the hospital. Now, I didn't actually participate in that interview. That was my daughter, Sarah, who was on the last show. They basically, the headline on their website says, Chesterfield man diagnosed with COVID-19, fighting for his life. And they interviewed my daughter and a couple other people. But basically, she was saying that I pretty much did not change my mind about how I felt about news media and the coverage and all that sort of thing. She just felt I didn't. What she did say was I didn't take it as seriously as what I probably should have. Now that was a statement she made, but they built the entire story around that statement. Is basically what it came down.
Basically, you were supposed to be like the the aforementioned so-called associates that I was mentioning about, it was a hoax.
Yes, exactly.
And, no, and let's be clear about this, people. At no time did Kevin utter the words, print the words, or comment on any piece of anywhere that coronavirus was a hoax and that he did not believe in it.
No, I believed it was a real thing. As a matter of fact, my wife and I, we were taking all the precautions. And I think I even mentioned on the last show, even though I'm not in a high risk group, I am in a higher risk group. So
Yes.
I know the odds of me getting it are a little bit better than some because like Michael, you're younger than me, not that
Yes.
much, but you're younger than me. But I am in that group, and now because the fact that I'm starting out with some lung damage from being back in being 13, I already know anytime I catch a cold, anytime a virus or whatever, I have to be careful with my lungs. I keep very close tabs on that. So my wife and I, we wore the masks. We went into a grocery store, but that was like a 10-minute trip in, get what we needed, get out. I went to
Yes.
Home Depot. I needed some parts to fix a toilet. Went in, bought the parts, never interacted with anybody, went through the self-checkout, used the hand sanitizer on my hands. Actually, we did that at the grocery store too. I took every single precaution I had to take. I still got it.
Yes.
Don't know where I got it. The Department of Health was in contact with me quite a bit. We were just trying to track down where they come from. And we really don't know because it can take up to 14 days to show symptoms. You'd be surprised how many things you do in 14 days that you don't remember.
Yes.
How many places you go that you don't remember. Because
Yeah.
my wife brought up, she said, "Oh, well, you went here one time too." And I don't, off the top of my head, again, I can't even remember where that was. But yeah, I went there, but it was, again, because I was aware of the precautions, I was in and out. I never spent time. I never interacted with people. I did everything I could to prevent myself from getting it. Sanitizing on the way in, sanitizing on the way out, everything. But yeah, I still caught it. And I it I don't want to say I don't regret catching it because it was not a fun time, and I'm still trying to get all my strength back. My legs are good, but like I said, I still got my arms to go. Anyway, that was the first story. So they had this narrative kind of going on how I was changing my mind, but they never actually talked to me. I was unconscious, so of course they can't. Plus, I was in the hospital and they can't get in there.
Yes.
Then they wanted to do a follow-up interview. I thought, okay, now I can tell my story and tell them
Yes, yes. Let's
I
put the truth out there.
that
Let's give an actual solid source right from the horse's mouth. The
right.
narrative should change after that, right?
I don't know if I should thank you for calling me a horse or sorry, this show is not for kids today. So the second one, the way they listed that one is Chesterfield man once skeptical of COVID-19 beats virus, warns others to take precautions. I was never skeptical of COVID-19. I was skeptical of the media portrayal of it. And as a matter of fact, I had an entire conversation with the woman who interviewed me. And I said, I don't trust the news media.
News media. We have a whole episode about it. Like, what did you think we were going to do? Yes, we are going to roast you. Yes, we are.
Well, the thing was, I had that entire conversation. I told her, because I come in contact with a lot of media people just through different work I do. Local news media people tend to really just want to do their jobs well. It's the national news who make all their money on ads.
Yes.
Are the ones I don't really trust. However, my mind's changed a little bit now on the local stuff. But the thing is, if you read what's on the website, the actual writing, it's a whole lot closer to what I said. It's still pieced together a little bit. I don't know.
The headline is still the narrative. That's the problem.
Yes.
So even though they put your truth in the article, you still have to be a free. If you're one of these actual, honest to God, I want to know some information about this story. So I'm going to read the article. I want to know some information about this subject matter. So I'm going to read this book or whatever. If you have that type of mindset, you will be able to get this information and then form your own opinion. You see what I'm saying? But if you are one of these people that are easily swayed, that are lazy and kind of don't want to do your own research, you just want to be led, the narrative-based headlines is what's going to make you think everything is that way. You're going to read something and be like, oh, yeah, that guy right there. Yeah, he used to think it was a hoax too. Yeah, look at this headline. Did you read the article?
Right. So I was not pleased with the TV interviews. I mean, they again, it's a limited audience, so it's not that big of a deal. But at the same time,
It still proves our point, though.
it proves the point. Yeah. So the I also got a call from a radio station. They wanted to do an interview with me. It was a human interest type story. They just wanted to know about my experience. And I got a chance. Apparently it's not on the website anymore. I wanted to go back and pull it up and maybe make a reference to it, but it's no longer there. Uh, they were true to everything I said. It was just strictly them asking me a few questions. Yes, they did edit it for time, but they didn't actually cut out the meat of what I said.
Yeah.
Because my entire message was, we'll take out the skeptical of COVID-19 part, but I warn people to take precautions. Yeah, especially if you're in a higher risk group. Don't be stupid, but at the same time, don't live in fear. It's too many people. Uh, one of the things I've noticed is that people who are retired think the country should be shut down because, first of all, they don't work outside the home necessarily anyway.
Yes.
So they don't care. So if we shut the country down, it does not affect them directly. I mean, it does as far as food supply and stuff like that, but overall, it does not affect them or their income. But if you're still working, you can't afford not to.
Yes.
Unless you're independently wealthy, this thing hits you hard economically.
Yeah. Or one of those, or you have one of those tech savvy jobs where you can get paid to work from home.
Yeah, and that's me actually. So that works out. It
Yes.
works out for me. But the problem is, I don't think we should shut down anything. My honest opinion is, the government's job was not to shut everything down. The government's job was to inform with accurate information. And that's my big thing right there. It's got to be accurate, and just let people decide how they're going to handle it. I've noticed there's this feeling out there from a lot of people that I've talked to. I don't want the government telling me what to do, but they need to tell everybody else what to do.
That's basically what happened. That's basically that's exactly what you're seeing in America. And I think it's just funny that you want the leader of our nation to keep telling everybody else what to do except for you.
Right.
So when and again, everything is cool until it impacts you personally. Then you want to do something about that.
Right. What they did in Pennsylvania, the governor there, he did it by county. So there was certain bars you had to hit. So they went with this red, green, yellow, or red, yellow, green, whatever. But it was by county. Now the problem was the one county that had like 0 cases except in the nursing homes. So they had to shut the county down because it didn't meet the bar. But it didn't meet the bar because of the nursing homes. And that was also one of those states that forced people with COVID into the nursing homes.
Yes.
And there were several states that did that. And so essentially the governor forced people into a nursing home, spread the disease, and now the whole county's got to shut down because a lockdown nursing home essentially locked down. So the virus can't get out necessarily.
Yes.
But it shuts the entire county down, even though nobody else around it is affected. So how do you? And the thing, and what's weird is like all the counties around it were yellow, I guess, at that point, but that
Yes.
one county is red. And it turns out a lot of people from the surrounding counties work in the county that's now red. So even though the outer counties are yellow, they're suffering economically too because they can't get into the county where they actually work.
Work. Yes. And so, and again, it's, I mean, I'm not saying it's fair one way or fair another. All I'm saying is that all these pro American, such all these pro-American, we should have less government and more freedom and this, that, and the other. And I mean, it is what it is. You cannot say that the government should put all these controls in place, but it's not for you because you're one of the good citizens.
Yeah,
You live in you live in one of the places of America where we don't have to worry about those kind of things. We should have a lot of government control in that place over there because that place is where the bad stuff
back in the beginning when all this was starting, I didn't really have a problem with the government taking some steps because we didn't know anything about this virus. And it was acting differently than other viruses in the way it spread and things like that.
happens. Yeah.
So with all those unknowns, something had to be done. So the plan originally, I guess, was to shut everything down for 2 weeks and see where we are after that. And
I was cool with that.
I was
I mean,
cool
a
with it
lot of
too.
people were cool with that.
Yeah. But the thing is, we didn't know anything about the virus. So that what's been bugging me the most is more and more data keeps coming out showing that this is not as serious. Uh, yes, it's deadly, but it's all over the news. And at this point, actually, I just pulled up a report that came out I think it was yesterday, uh, basically saying that it's on par with the flu at this point.
Yes.
So if it's not more serious than the flu, either we're not taking enough precautions for the flu, or we're taking too many cautions with the COVID, or we need to find a happy medium between the two. I mean, with the flu, what happens is we lock down nursing homes. And typically that's a private decision on the nursing home itself. Yeah,
No.
as that typically that doesn't come from the government. That's like, hey, we got the flu going on. We don't want our patients to die or our clients to die or whatever they call them there. So we're going to lock it down. No visitors for a while till this flu thing passes it by. Just basically you isolate the most vulnerable, and then, but you don't lock down anybody else. You let
Yes.
them keep going. Yeah, they're going to get the flu. No, they're not going to die, statistically speaking.
Yes.
But with this COVID thing, it was a matter when the data started coming out showing that, hey, if you're under the age of 65, odds are with you that you're not going to die from it. Yeah, you might be hospitalized, but you're not going to die.
Yes.
Why are we still locking down everybody at this point rather than because they actually broke it out into age groups at this point. Actually, I think I saw something that said more people over the age of 90 have died than those people under 65 or something
Well,
like that.
what's your? I think like everything else in this country, race relations, politics, schooling, you name anything in this country, some kind of social infrastructure construct, whatever, you are now seeing the mindset of what people believe play out because of the diversity that this country is now. This country is way more diverse now than it ever was.
Sure.
It's just that simple, and you can see it. And again, no matter what your political leanings are, if you look at it, there are millions of people that are now active that either did not vote or could not vote in the last 8 to 12 years. Literally. So you have to understand, like, that's where all this resistance is coming from. This country was so used to being one way, having this one way image of how everything should run. This is how the finance industry should run. This is how the medical industry should run. This is how the communication industry should run. This is how the government should run. This is how things should run. It was just one way. And it didn't matter what race or religion you were. It was just a construct that was just built and it was just used to run in one way. Now you have these millions and millions of people that are now in our society, okay, that did not grow up or do not agree with that construct for whatever reason. They don't believe in vaccinations. They don't believe in mandatory vaccinations. They don't, let me put it that way. They don't believe in mandatory vaccinations. Okay. You go back 20 years, there was no movement for that. There wasn't. You still had hippies and vegans and stuff like that, but there was no hardcore liberal, we're just against mandatory vaccination. No, that wasn't a thing. Now it is. That's a whole political party, to tell you the truth. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. I mean, that's what you're seeing.
And that's fine. One thing I was talking with a school teacher, and her entire problem was that she was discussing with me about how parents are feeling about sending their kids back to school in September.
Yeah.
And I said, well, the science is showing that, first of all, the kids don't spread it. They don't drive a pandemic. They don't drive an epidemic, not with this particular virus. They're just not the ones spreading it. The flu is something that they can spread, but the COVID is not. So then the question is, well, the teachers are older, so they can, but they don't really pass it to the kids, and the kids don't pass it to them. But when the teachers are together, then they need to be following some of the precautions.
Yes.
Now, that's what that's what the science says. But what she said to me was, it doesn't matter what the science says; it's what the parents feel. And
see? Yeah.
the parents feel their child is going to be in danger, so
I
they.
mean, but that's exactly how the country was operating all the way up to, like, okay, and this is what I mean by this. Look at how suburbs were built in this country. And again, we're not going to turn it racial, but just look. People felt, I want to live around a certain group or a certain standard of people. And so the suburbs got built. And if you made a certain amount of money, you put you and your family in a certain type of neighborhood. You did not stay in the city. The city is where bad stuff happens. The city had a lower standard of living. We don't want to live there. We want to go out to a place where we can, separate ourselves and live amongst people that have a certain standard of living. And hence the suburbs, hence a cul-de-sac, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So people have done that in this country for years, and they did it because they felt a certain way. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like it was being mandated by our government. You know what I'm saying? If you're a type of person that believes you should be able to hunt and shoot on your own land without the government trying to put stuff on you, you are not going to live in the city. You're going to hate living in the city. It's just that simple. So you're going to want to live somewhere where you can burn your own garbage, where if you want to take a gun out into the backyard and test it real quick because you just bought it, you can just do it. You see what I'm saying? If you want to set up a whatever in your backyard, you can set it up. You ain't got to file permits. You ain't got to do anything. You can pretty much do what you want to on your own land because it's your land and you own it. So the same way people have been doing that for years, you have this new group of people, again, diverse culture. It's a bigger America now. It's more diversity. You have a group of people that feel like what you were just saying. And now it's, well, I feel that I shouldn't have to give my son medicine for COVID-19. I feel I shouldn't have to wear a mask. Look what's going on in Florida. There's a whole
You're going to go somewhere where I'm going to argue with you.
Yeah. Look what's going on in Florida. Literally, you have the 180 degree from one argument to that argument. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? You got a whole bunch of people that are saying we should lock this country down. It's not safe. We should be wearing masks. We should be doing everything to take precautions. That extreme view, okay? And then you go in the opposite direction, all the way to the right, left, whatever you want to call it, and you have a group of people in this country, regardless of income, race, creed, and color, that are religion, that are saying, you're not going to make me wear a mask. And I get to, and if I want to go back to work, I should be able to go back to work. So, and again, those two instances are all based on feelings. Who's right, who's wrong. I was just hoping that our show is an example of what politicians should be doing. Where's the middle ground? Where's the compromise? Because at the end of the day, these leaders are still the leaders of everybody in their area of responsibility. If you are the president of the United States, you're the president of the United States, you are the president of the United States, of everybody in the United States, not just the people that voted for you. If you're a governor, you're the governor of everyone in that state, not just the people that voted for you or believe in you or your base. So if you got all these people over here that believe they should just not wear masks and go to work and be free, okay, and then you got all these people over here that should think, man, we need to lock this thing down until we get control over it, and everybody needs to have masks on. Where is the compromise, politicians? Where your job is to politic. Your job is to take these people on this side of the fence and that side of the fence, and if there's a third group or third view, take those guys, put that at a table, and you're supposed to lead until a compromise is found. That is the great institution of America. That's the way it's supposed to work. But it's not working like that.
Right.
It's just not.
As a matter of fact, a good example where Ohio and Pennsylvania, one of the things that I've noticed, that I'm from Pennsylvania, which is why I probably bring it up a lot. But in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, where it borders with Ohio, Pennsylvania is still basically locked down. I mean, I know they're coming back, and I don't know what their status is right now on what's come back. But Ohio opened up a lot earlier. And there's a restaurant right at the border that basically has named Governor Wolf of Pennsylvania their most valuable employee because he locked everything down. The people on the border in Pennsylvania have gone to Ohio to go to this restaurant so they could just eat out for a change. So the restaurant is making bank off people from Pennsylvania, and all the restaurants in Pennsylvania are still shut. At that point, are still shut down,
Oh,
not making
man.
any money. So again, it's like these borders among states, in a lot of ways, don't make sense either. Like, how can you lock down? Well, actually, the way the governor split it up by county. Well, if you live on the county line, we have that here. We have Henrico County and Chesterfield County, or
Yes.
Henrico and yeah. So we're basically just a few minutes apart. Well, they impose a restaurant tax in Henrico County. Well, if you're near Chesterfield County, you don't eat in Henrico. You eat in Chesterfield because it's like a 4% tax, maybe something like that.
Yeah. So now the tax money that let's just say that the tax money that Henrico thought they were going to get, or I guess the benefit of your tax money, they're really not getting it because it's going over there to Chesterfield because that's where you're eating at.
Yeah, and now that's only occurring along the borders, because if you're deeper into the county, it's too much of a drive to save yourself a few bucks.
Gotcha.
But if you can save a few bucks just by driving an extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, you're going to do it. You just, unless it's a restaurant that you just have a love for, that no one else can make food like this, or something like that. Philadelphia found the same thing. They put a tax on high sugar drinks. So there's a pizza place like right on the border of Philadelphia, and if you just walk across the block, you can get your high sugar drink at a lower cost because the tax isn't there. Yeah, and I believe in that case the tax was somewhat substantial. So the pizzeria is losing money because people won't buy the drinks, and drinks are how restaurants make their money. The profit margin on drinks is much higher than on everything else they sell. So, and that's where they make their monies. But no one would buy drinks at this pizzeria. They'd walk across the street where the tax doesn't apply, buy their drinks there, but they still bought the pizza there because the pizza was outstanding.
Okay.
But so taxing, again, you get into that one size fits all kind of thing. And first of all, if I want to drink a high, what was it? New York wanted to ban 32-ounce high sugar drinks or something. You could
Yeah.
only buy, so I'll buy 216s. If I want to drink it, I'm going to drink it. The government is not going to stop me from doing what I want to do. As a matter of fact, I mean, right now, a mandatory mask. I think in Virginia, we still have to wear a mask everywhere we go,
Yes.
if we're in a public spot.
Yes.
I see people all the time without masks on, and if you think the government can make everybody do that, there was a gym that opened up. They weren't supposed to open up, and let's see, that was in New Jersey, I believe. Gym wasn't
Yeah.
supposed to open up, but they did anyway. But they put all these things into place to make sure their patrons were safe. And actually, they went way beyond what the government requirements were.
God.
And cops came in and said, "Hey, you're breaking the law here." And they explained everything they're doing, and the cops are like, "Okay, just no, you're breaking the law, but have a nice day."
Man.
No, they left because and I'm hearing that from a lot of cops now too. We don't have time to be following up on people not wearing a mask. It's like we got crime. There's actual crime going on. Uh, we don't have time to arrest somebody for not wearing a mask. It isn't worth our time. From what I've been seeing, a lot of the cops don't care anymore. It's like it isn't even a law, really. It's an executive order. I don't know how much weight that carries. Again, okay. So I found this graphic on the coronavirus in Sweden. Now, Sweden is a very homogenous society. We're very diverse, so it's very different. However, the Imperial College, we got the graphic up there for you. The Imperial College prediction, there's an orange and a gray, and it's like astronomical number of corona deaths is what they're talking about. And as you can see, the orange and the gray lines are just super, super high. But if you look at the blue line, which is the actual deaths, it's been declining steadily. Actually, never even reached the point of uh, what they were predicting. And the part of the problem I see is, we want to talk about government response. The government is responding to models, and models are only as good as the data that's put into them. For instance, supposedly some of the models took into account that people were going to lock down, and we still had 1.2 million deaths or something predicted. We don't even have that worldwide at this point. Uh, most of the countries have declining death rates. We have a declining death rate, uh, and yet what the news media is pushing right now is not the death rate, because that's what they were pushing because those numbers didn't look good. But now those numbers do look good. And so what they've moved on to is case rate. How many cases of coronavirus do we have? The largest population in our country that shows this really huge spike in cases is 20 to 35-year-olds. Now, they're not going to die. So we can't talk about death rates because they're not going to die. Actually, death rate over the whole country is dropping. So we have to push the number of cases. Now, never mind the fact that we're moving up from 100,000 tests a day to 700,000 tests a day, which means we're going to have a whole lot more positives than what we had before.
Yes. Because you're testing more. It's just common sense. If you test more, you get more cases.
Exactly. But the death rate keeps dropping, even though the number of cases keeps going up. And
it shouldn't be about the number of cases. Of course, the cases are going to keep going up. The cases are not going up because a bunch of people went down to Florida into Miami Beach and didn't social distance. There we go. Thank you. So social distancing is a parameter, but not the main cause. Okay, you have to. I mean, it's just common sense. If I didn't do a lot of testing at first, only until people showed up with symptoms, I'm going to have a low case study. But if I just start randomly just testing people, whether it's free testing, paid testing, it doesn't matter. We're just going to start testing more people, whether they have symptoms or not. Of course, your cases are going to go up. Now, can it be that people are still being tested that show symptoms because they did not social distance, or they went to the beach, or they went to a BLM protest or something like that? Yeah, part of those statistics are going to be in there. But the fact of the matter is you really are testing more. You have to look at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the cases are going to go up.
And the report that I was talking about with the modeling versus the actual, uh,
Yes.
they start that article with all these updates of data that we have now, like
Yes.
for instance, the median age of the deceased in most countries, including Italy, is over 80 years of age. 86 in Sweden. This report is from Sweden itself.
Yes.
Only about 4% of the deceased had no serious preconditions. So 96% of the people who died had a serious precondition.
Listen.
So the age, basically, the age and risk profile of deaths are essentially corresponding to normal mortality. So they were essentially, if you had a serious condition and you were probably going to die, but you caught COVID in the meantime, COVID is considered the cause or
Yes.
a contributing cause.
Yes.
And yes, it may have been, but you were already in a condition where you weren't going to make it that much longer anyway.
Anyway.
You
Yes.
know, so uh, something like 2/3 of the deaths occurred in nursing homes.
The problem is that they're trying to make prominent the younger people, the people that are in their 30s and their 40s that didn't have outlining conditions that they could not outlive for another 10, 15 years that have passed away. Like a 35-year-old woman that seemed to be healthy and all of a sudden she gets a headache, passes out, and then she dies. Like, and you realize that it was COVID because she had a coughing fit, couldn't catch her breath, and then she died. Like, that's literally what happened to Javon's friend. She literally went out, she didn't social distance. All of a sudden she was at a party and she just didn't feel good. She just was dizzy, dizzy, dizzy. She went to the emergency room. They turned her away. They gave her some medicine. She didn't get tested. And next thing you know, she woke up the next morning and she was with her daughter. And literally what happened was she just said, "Oh my God, I can't breathe." She started coughing. She literally went into a coughing fit for like 5 minutes and then just stopped breathing. So what ends up happening is when you have cases like that, like a real extreme case like that, and people know that that was COVID. She just didn't randomly have a heart attack. It is
Right.
what it is. You know.
And I have of course that okay, I don't want to be insensitive here, but that's a one-off.
Yes.
It's not a common thing for something like that to happen.
And I think that is the now we get into that whole governmental response or the media outlets. Like, what are you pushing when you push that narrative? When you take a case like that and you put that on the forefront and you make COVID about that particular case or that type of infectious or that type of situation, then what are you doing? What do you expect certain Americans to do? Instead of giving them the whole picture, you're making it about that one thing.
Right.
Which is just part of it.
Yeah, actually, I was talking to my mom, and one of the things she said was, "Oh, well, there was a teenager who died in Pennsylvania. There's only one, by the way, and to this date, I believe there's still only one that was a teenager and died, and but there was pre-existing conditions too, on top of that. So and the thing is, the other thing about sending kids back to school, I want to throw this stat out there. The mortality rate for children, the last I read, was 1 in 1.5 million. So out of 1.5 million kids, one who gets COVID, or one out of every 1.5 million kids will die of COVID.
Yes.
Now,
or whatever this secondary thing is called, where I can't remember.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be like SARS or something.
yeah, but it does affect kids differently than adults. We do
Yes.
know that. But the thing is, to not send your kids back to school because there's a 1 in a 1.5 million chance that your child could die. And granted, I don't. There's nothing
Well,
worse.
that's what the that's the whole and again you
I'm about to say it. There's
yeah,
nothing worse than losing a child.
yes, because that's what the anti-vaxxers are saying. You know, we don't care that there's a 1 in billion chance that my child could get autism. There's still a chance. That's the
Yeah.
whole argument.
Uh,
So
yeah, exactly. You do everything you can to protect your children. I get that. I mean, I was the same way. I'm a parent. I'm a
Mhm.
grandparent now. I do the same thing. I want my children healthy, happy. I don't want to put them in any kind of danger whatsoever. But 1 in a 1.5 million, and if that one is yours, obviously uh, I don't want to be the parent that ends up with that, of course.
So then you have to ask yourself, so because now we're looking at government response again. So okay, so let's fast forward. No matter what issue you stand on, or no matter how you feel about this, professionals have done their job, and there's a vaccine. Period in the story, and it has been tested, and we have data. We have actual data to show you that this is good. Okay,
Mhm.
and in that transparency of the data, there's a 1 in 1.5 million that if your child takes this, they could get that secondary disease and be hospitalized and may die.
Mhm.
Out of the 1 in 1.5 million chance that they catch this disease, there's another, say, 1 in 10 chance that they could die from it. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's how those statistics are written. Okay. So now you have to think, do I want to give my child this vaccine if there's a 1.5 million chance that they're going to catch this secondary viral syndrome or whatever it is? And then if they do catch it, there's a 1 in 10 chance that they could die from it. So yeah. So now where we're at. So if the government makes it mandatory that all children must have the COVID-19 vaccination before starting public school, what are you going to do? See where I'm coming from? Like,
Oh
this
yeah,
is
no,
a
I
valid
get it.
question
I get
now.
and that see, and that's what rather than all the stuff politicians talk about, these are the actual things people care about.
Yes.
It's like all this other crap. Like there was a big thing where the well the $1,200 that you got sent, uh,
Yes.
and then they lumped all this other crap onto the bill that couldn't pass on its own, so they attach it to a bill that can't lose, so that they can get it passed. And it's
Yes.
it's just a lot of stupidity. Uh, to me, well, I don't want to talk about government and politics and stuff like that so much.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right that the whole idea of not opening up the school, uh, when the data shows that doing it, uh, I mean, granted, schools were not prepared to do it online originally. They've adapted quite well. Sarah being my daughter being a school teacher, I see how she's adapted to it. But the thing is, the kids, they're supposed to put in, I don't know, 2 hours a day or something.
Yes.
And what she's seeing is they'll text her and say, "Hey, I'm not understanding this. I've been putting in like 6 hours a day." And she goes and it logs everything they do and how long they've been on and how much actual work they've done. They're doing like 2 minutes a day on average, or some I don't know, some ridiculously low number.
Mm.
Now the parent, and the thing is, nobody's working, so where are the parents? Making sure that they're, and some of the parents are even contacting her and saying, hey, they're just not getting it, and they're putting all this time into it. Yeah, they got it turned on, yeah, we see that it's turned on, but there's no clicking,
Yeah,
there's no
there's no
typing.
clicking. The mouse is not moving. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing going on here. You might want to check the game that's going on in the background. Things like that. So we know that, and especially for younger kids, the online thing just doesn't work because it's a real discipline to learn online. You
Yeah.
you have to want it in order for that to work. I took college courses. Some of them were online, and I had to make myself sit down and do it. It was, and I love to learn. It was still hard for me,
Yeah.
because there are some subjects I had to study that I didn't care much about. So I really had to force myself to study those things. So anyway, so the question is, well, what about sending the kids back? And I get accused of being a science denier a lot of times because I'm very skeptical of things. I
Hmm.
don't deny science. I never deny science. I'm all about science, but I am skeptical of some conclusions. I saw on Facebook today. I saw at least out of 10 posts, 6 of them saying that people who don't wear masks are denying science. And I pull up a report. Actually, it might be the same report that shows that the cloth masks that everybody seems to be using these days,
Yeah.
97% of everything makes it through them.
Yes.
You know,
But a guy did the actual science. There's some dude in South America, Mexico or South America. He has a video out there. I don't even know why people are not looking at it. And he's and you can hear him because he's not even speaking English. He's telling you if the mask if the mask is passing or doesn't pass the liquid particles out of your mouth as you cough. And what he does is he holds up an actual it's almost like a can of deodorant spray or something. It's crazy. And your cough is more powerful than that actual spray, believe it or not. Okay, so if that spray makes it through the cloth, your cough is definitely going through it. Okay, so what happens is he just holds the mask up and says, "This is what type of mask it is, fresh out the packet." And he just holds it up and he sprays. And you can see in the camera how the spray is going right through and making it through the other side of the mask. And he says, "See, pasa." And he says pasa, which is in Spanish, it passes through. He
right.
only, out of those, I think 6 or 8, it's like 6 to 8 masks he uses. Only 2 do not pass the actual spray through the mask,
Right.
where he
And,
says
and
no pasa. And
right.
I'm like, wow, that is so simple.
Well, one of the people who's always posting on about wearing the mask,
Mm-hmm.
just the other day put one up there, like when you can see your breath in the wintertime, you
Yes,
breath,
yes.
those are water droplets coming out of your lungs.
So there's the explanation is that is water vapor in that, pure and simple, period, hands down. No matter how light the breath is, it's water vapor in that.
Right.
Wow.
That's what you see.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And that
So
carries the virus. And if the mask isn't stopping it, it was a convincing picture. Like, hey, if you can see your breath in the wintertime, why aren't you wearing a mask? Because that would stop all. It's like, did you put your mask on in the wintertime?
so then the question would be is how much does the mask hinder the distance? Because I can tell you right now,
No, that's a possibility.
short of a gas mask or any kind of firefighter's mask or anything like that that's self-contained or that contains anything from getting out
Right.
outside of like a big charcoal filter or something like that on so you can breathe in but nothing really is kind of coming out in force. So short of that, like the mask that I have on, I would literally, even if I blow real hard, yes, that's going to come out, but how far is it going to go versus if you cough without it?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to say the reason 6 feet is the safety social distancing measurement is because you know how hard it is for you to just generally cough and cough something on somebody's face from 6 feet away. Like if you just went and
Yeah.
coughed out into the air like that, it's going to be hard for whatever comes out of your mouth to fly 6 feet and land on somebody's face. I don't
Well,
care.
no, and supposedly that's the science behind the 6 feet.
Yes.
Uh, but apparently, from what I've been reading now, that there really was no science behind it. 6 feet just seemed, yeah, that's about reasonable. Because I mean,
I cannot right now, Kevin. I can't, man.
no, for instance, if you sing, like right now, the thing,
Yes.
a church can open, but you can't sing. Who goes to church and doesn't sing? Well, I know
Sing.
people that go to church and don't sing, but a church isn't a church without the singing, you know.
Sing it,
But
yes.
the singing will project it further than 6 feet.
Sing it, yeah.
So wouldn't a cough project it more than 6 feet? I mean, yeah, the bigger drops are going to fall to the
Yes, they're talking about the weight. Yeah,
right.
like a loogie or mucus or anything like that. Yeah, it's not going 6 feet.
Well, see, now I grew up in the mountains of Pennsylvania, and
Yeah.
you could see your breath there, but you could see it keep going. I mean, it travels. It does. You know, it doesn't just
Okay.
fall to the ground. It's hey, it's just the way it is. So that's
Yeah.
apparently there's no science behind that either.
Wow. Okay.
Um, maybe for larger drops. Actually, the mask would probably stop larger drops.
Yes.
You know, like when you talk to old people and they spit all over you. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so next thing on here is we didn't talk about Democrat and Republican. I have friends that live in states. They're Democrats who live in states that are run. The governors are Democrat, and they're like, "Oh, we got the best governor. They've kept the death rates down, or whatever." It's like, but no one's caught the disease yet. Once you do open up, they're going to catch it,
Yes.
and when they catch it, that's when
There
they're
has to be a compromise for that.
exactly. And that's part of the problem. And you don't want it done at the federal level either, because they do a one size fits all kind of thing.
Yeah, and
But
that's not gonna work either.
the governors do
Yeah.
that too. Why not leave it down to the local? Bring it down to the city or the town government or whatever.
Case
Let
in point, and I can definitely understand this from growing up in Baltimore. Okay, there's a lot of gun, and I'm just saying this type of legislation of the lockdown thing. I understand why it was done for like the first, not even the first month. After that, I don't understand what you're doing it for.
right.
Okay, so there's so much gun violence. So what we're going to do is we're going to lock down everything and make people stay in their house. Okay, we made them stay in their house for literally. We put martial law on the street and we made everybody stay in their house. And the only reason you could have came out was either to go straight to work or go straight to school, and that was it. No hanging out, no going to the malls, no going nothing. Man, crime dropped. It dropped 150% in 2 months because nobody is out in the street doing anything. That's why. So all of a sudden, you let everybody back out the house. Oh my God, crime went back up 250%. No. Excuse my English, but no shit, Sherlock.
Yeah, exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So that's basically what your point is. And I just don't understand. Like I get why we did it for the first month. You should have. I think they should have took that first month and they should have threw all the money they had into all the case testing and statistics they possibly could get. For real, I think they should have. Whoever didn't have test kits, they should have hurried up and rushed them out there. They should have took all this time to get all the data they needed to for the first 1 or 2 months, which Dr. Fauci and some of the other people in the community were saying that's what they were trying to do. Okay, you now have like 3 months of lockdown. What kind of statistics do you have? What kind of testing data do you have?
And then secondly, everything that Dr. Fauci does or says is based on how do we contain the COVID-19. He doesn't worry about does it affect mental health. He doesn't worry about is it affecting the economy. He doesn't worry about any of those things.
But you can't contain anything.
But the thing is, I heard one doctor, which I totally agreed with what he was saying, was every virus finds herd immunity. The only time it will begin to die out is when herd immunity is found and it can't find new hosts to get into. So until we reach herd immunity, it's going to keep spreading. Now,
And do
locking it,
you
locking
understand?
it, yeah,
Yeah,
locking it down is going to slow it so that it finds herd immunity over a longer period, but it's going to find it. Now,
yeah,
the outside that there's a chance that we're going to get a miracle drug or we're going to get a vaccine. Those two things well, we're talking about flattening the curve now. By flattening the curve, we didn't reduce the number of deaths. We just spread them out. I mean, no one actually thought flattening the curve was going to reduce the number of deaths. It was just going to spread them out so that hospitals weren't overwhelmed with all the patients coming in. Now, if you flatten it enough, eventually you might find a vaccine or this miracle drug.
yes.
Now, if that happens, that's great. Okay, we saved lives because of that. But in the meantime, I mean, it was a month ago. I read there were over 100,000 businesses that will no longer open up. There's some major chains that are not opening up. There's chains that have shut down tons and tons of stores that are never going to open up. So all these jobs are being lost. We're creating a new problem. And like you said, and I agree with you on that. Locking down for the first month did make sense. It also brought out a lot of new data where they could change up what they were doing because they were after the first month they already knew it was affecting certain sections of the population as
Yeah.
far as age goes. Or
And common sense and science says that it's a virus. You can't contain that. I
exactly
catch the flu every single year. Every single year I catch the flu. How come I don't have symptoms? Probably because I get vaccinated. Maybe because I built up an immunity. I have no idea. But I catch it every single year. Just like I catch a cold every single year. I catch a cold more than once. It affects people differently. When you're talking about viruses and stuff like that, there is no containment.
right.
I mean, we haven't contained AIDS. You name one thing about containment that we've done with the HIV virus. We haven't contained that. If you go out right now and you have unprotected sex with somebody, you will catch AIDS. It is not contained. Now, what we have done is we found a treatment for it once you catch the virus, but HIV is not contained. It's
and,
not.
but there's certain precautions you can take to not get it too.
And again, you can take those precautions all day long, but the virus is still not contained.
No, that's exactly right.
You see
So,
what I'm saying? Like when
COVID's the
you
same
say
thing.
the word contained, that means you have a way of literally eradicating it in an area where you see its presence. That's what you mean when you say like we're going to contain it here. Like we're going to put something in place where it cannot go outside the boundaries of where we place this. I can't think of any virus that we've done that to. Because if you go to California and say we've contained HIV in California, nope, because it's in Baltimore. Anybody that leaves California has the ability to spread that virus someplace else. So
Right.
what are you talking about containment?
And actually AIDS started in Africa and it has spread over the entire world now at this point. It is what it is. It's a virus.
It is.
And,
Thank you.
and we travel. People travel. Now, should we shut down all travel? You can't go anywhere ever. Lock you in your house.
I mean, look what they did for what was it, H1N1 or whatever it was,
Yeah.
dude. We come on, man. We weren't doing this for that. Like, come on, bro.
Well, see, and the other problem I'm having is this whole flattening the curve. We did flatten the curve. We kept the hospitals from being overwhelmed by the lockdown. And again, like for the first month, that made a lot of sense. The problem is a lot of governors stepped it up and not just tried to flatten the curve as far as COVID went, but it's like, well, you can't have elective surgeries. And now elective surgery covers a lot of different things. For one, if someone has to have a mastectomy, the breast reconstruction is uh, I can't think of the word, elective.
Yes.
So the breast reconstruction is
it's an elective surgery. Yes.
right. However, if you don't do it at the same time as the mastectomy, the costs, the risks, the everything goes way up if you want to do it at a later time.
Yes.
So the best time to do that is at the time of the mastectomy. because the breast is already open. The skin that they're going to need to do the grafting, whatever, is all there.
There.
But because it's an elective surgery,
Procedure. Yeah.
it wasn't allowed to be done. Now, and it's done by a plastic surgeon.
Yes.
So plastic surgeons were essentially out of work. Now, a plastic surgeon coming in to do a breast reconstruction 6 months after the mastectomy was done, that there's so much involved, where if they just did it at the same time, it takes an extra hour or two,
Yes.
and then they're done, and you don't have to worry about it. And the costs are kept low because, like I said, all the materials they need are there.
All right
The
there.
wound is fresh. The whole bit.
Yes.
It was like so much randomness of how they chose. So this whole flattening the curve, cancer screenings were canceled. Now, as we're coming out of this, they're finding more and more people who they probably would not have died, but now they're in a stage 3 or stage 4 situation. And they may not live because they couldn't get the cancer screening during the COVID issue. Things like that. And that's what I'm saying. Like Dr. Fauci, he might be great when it comes to viruses, but his forte is not in any of those other areas. So we should not be making decisions based solely on his information. He's telling you about the virus. Now, talk to an economist about the economy. Talk to, I don't know, surgeons about elective surgeries. Talk to whoever you got to talk to about all these other areas that you're making decisions about based on the guy who knows about viruses. You're talking about shutting down the economy based on what this guy knows about viruses. That's the wrong guy to talk to. You got to talk to an economist. And again, like you said, being a politician, bring them together and discuss. Let the economist ask questions of the guy that knows viruses and say, hey, I see what you're saying, but this could end up happening. Bring somebody in from mental health, because we see that's where suicides especially have gone way up. Domestic violence has gone way up.
Yes.
Bring people in from those areas. As soon as you're starting to see a trend, bring them in to talk about it and say, okay, what's more important at this point? Locking down because of the virus, or do we need to let people get out a little bit? Maybe teach them about I mean, we already know about the precautions. We've been hearing about that the whole time. Are the precautions going to be enough to prevent, everything that's going on with COVID is not about COVID. It's about everything in general. It's about life in general.
Yeah.
And you're making lifetime decisions or life decisions about one tiny facet of what's really going on.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. We got to be closing up here. Last thing on the list here is just what opinions we have of the current situation.
I think me personally, as far as COVID-19 is concerned, I know people don't want to hear this and they probably think I'm crazy, probably because I haven't had an extreme experience with getting sick like that or the virus itself. But I just think the country should just open back up to normal, period, end of story. This is supposed to be a free country. And when I say this is supposed to be a free country, then let people choose. Okay. Now, if you're going to say there's an epidemic, then Donald Trump, the president of the United States of America, needs to make an executive order and shut the whole entire country down. This should not be a governor is doing this and this governor's doing that and this governor's doing this and this governor's doing that. Period, end of story. Okay. If the country is going to stay open, stay open. Okay. Now, the governors felt like they had to protect certain things, like New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Cuomo? I don't disagree with any of these leaders. I don't want to side check quarterback or say, what I'm saying, they should have did this and should have did this. I mean, I don't have that job. I don't know what it's like. If a governor feels as though he's got some place like New York City, which is a major hub to in and out of the United States of America, not to mention, all those people that actually live in the city, he had to put some precautions in place because he just wanted to save lives. He saw what was going on. So he put some precautions in place. We get it. Okay, but is the conversation being had? I don't know that. It doesn't look like that to me. It doesn't look like Cuomo is sitting with Trump and they're sitting with economists and all the rest of this other stuff, and they're trying to figure out how to get New York's economy back to normal and how to do some things. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, I haven't heard one peep out of Utah. Have you? I haven't. Yeah. What does that tell you? You see what I'm saying? Like, I haven't heard nothing out of Utah. No news, no nothing. Not one thing. Nothing. I'm just putting that out there. Hey, any people that's listening to this, if you in Utah, tell me what's going on out there. Because obviously your governors and your mayors and don't need obviously any kind of real help from y'all just living your life out there. And I'm not saying people have not been impacted in Utah by COVID, but I'm just showing you the difference. And
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? And so I really think the country should just reopen, period. Because if the president of the United States is not willing to go on the record and take responsibility for the so-called crisis of COVID-19 and shut this country down, then why are we bickering? Why are we bickering? Again, everybody's talking about we're a free country and we want small government on the right side. That's what we want. We want small government. Government can't tell me what to do. Okay, well, if this is not an emergency crisis, open the government up. There you go. But then then we go back to, oh, well, guess what? States' rights. Governor feels as though there's a situation, New York, and I need to shut this city down. So I'm going to declare a state of emergency, which means the whole state is an emergency, not just New York City. So now you're getting mad at the same thing that you support, which is states' rights and small government, which is being shown in New York City. You are now saying they shouldn't be doing that. That's what I'm saying. The whole hypocrisy of it is just like, really?
Yeah. Well, my thoughts basically, I did not change my mind on how the news media is covering all this. Like I said, death rates are going down. That's good news. We should be hearing about that.
Yes.
The case count is going up. That's actually good news because it shows that we're actually going toward herd immunity, and at the same time, the mortality rate is dropping. Basically, this report that I had pulled up was basically saying they're at 0.1% mortality rate. It was originally thought to be 4 or 5%, something like that, based on the original numbers. But as more and more testing is being done, the better it is. But then again, the misrepresentation of data that the news media keeps putting out there, like for instance, well, we have to be I don't want to use CNN as an example because they're just their thing is we have to make Trump look bad, and that everything is based on that. Now, I get it. You don't like Trump. I don't like Trump either. But I actually base what I say on the facts. I like to go with the facts. I'm just that way, I'm not. Like for instance, I actually pulled up a picture where one commentator from CNN is saying the fact because Trump didn't shut the whole country down, he's responsible for all these deaths. And then when Trump said, "Well, I'm going to open up the whole country," the next commentary on CNN says he doesn't have the power to open the whole thing up. It's not his call; it's the governor's. So that's
the hypocrisy of it, man. You can't be on this side of the fence on the statement, trying to make yourself look right, and then the opposite happens, and so you go over there and make another anti-statement to make yourself look right, dude.
Right, and the thing is, if he doesn't have the power, he doesn't have the power. It's just
okay. So he doesn't have the power. Oh, okay. So do you want him to shut the country down? Well, yeah. No, he can't. You just told him he don't have the power. No. That's not what I said. That is what you said.
Exactly. And, well, the other thing is not Cuomo is the governor of New York.
Yes.
I believe it's De Blasio is the mayor of New York.
Yes, but the state of emergency gets declared
It's
by
the
the
whole state.
governor.
Right. That comes
Yes,
from the governor.
that's what
Right.
I'm saying.
I just wanted to clear that up.
Yes.
But the thing was, Cuomo, who signed the order, I actually have the order on my computer, uh, to put people who were getting out of the hospital with COVID. They didn't test negative necessarily, but they recovered enough from COVID, were put back in the nursing homes, and then that kind of drove this whole nursing home thing. That happened in New
Wow.
York. So it took. I did a study on this. It was either 1.5 or 2.5 months before he rescinded that order, and then he said, "And any nursing home that is willing to put in a COVID patient, we're going to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law."
So now he's on the opposite 180 after he
Yeah,
realizes that a
and he did it.
mistake
Yeah. Now
that,
the
that
thing
there
was,
were mistakes made based on his leadership. So now we're going to act like we're going to punish people based on an example you set out there.
right, and the thing is, I'm glad he rescinded the order,
Yes.
but now he's saying, "Well, it's not my fault. Trump had some kind of policy, and I was just following that."
Oh my God,
It's like,
man.
it's like, seriously, you. If I were the governor, and now I'm not the governor, and like you said, I didn't have the job, and because it's politics, maybe I wouldn't do this. But I honestly believe I would say, you know what, I was wrong about that. I was just totally wrong. That was not.
Said no politician ever.
Honestly, I think I would get votes just because I would be so incredibly honest about everything. But it's like, hey, I screwed up, and it's my fault. I'm the leader, so therefore I'm going to take responsibility for what I did, even though I took somebody else's example. That was a bad example. And this, let's say Trump did make a policy of some sort, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you implemented it, it's your fault. Why did you not weigh the pros and cons? Why didn't you talk to the doctors? Why didn't you do your due diligence to say, hey, you know what, that policy kind of sucks. We're not going to do that.
You want to know what's funny? It's funny because I listened to Michelle Obama talk about her becoming book and she for her tour and everything, and she was talking about her when Obama his first year in the White House, and as first lady, she got to the podium and she started speaking. This is before she understood what politics really was. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So she started speaking from a place of being a mother and just being the American she was. Mm-hmm. And they was roasting her for it when she first got in office. And the problem is when she spoke to, she said she spoke to her husband and she spoke to, advisors and stuff. It was like, you can't go to the podium and say that stuff. Even though what she said was true,
right?
There was nothing wrong in what she said, and this is a free country. She should be able to express her opinion. The problem is the things that she was saying were a detriment to the office. Because nobody is supposed to be honest like that. Like literally, that was the problem. I'm like, are you serious? Like she felt some kind of way. You can see it in her interview that she basically felt some kind of way. And then she had to literally find a way to address certain issues and support her husband, support the president of the United States, her husband, okay, but still do it in such a way that when she spoke, it could not be used as cannon fodder, basically.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's and just that alone just shows you what's wrong with politics.
Anyway, that is everything for us today. If you like the video, please share it. Leave your comments down. Leave them on YouTube. Leave them on Facebook.
Yes.
Wherever you might be watching this video, let us know what you're thinking. Let us know if there's any topics you'd like us to cover. We have a few topics in hand that we do definitely want to cover coming up. But we did want to do a follow-up on the coronavirus, mainly because we got touched by it and really wanted to just hash that out. But anyway, that's it for us, and we'll see you next time.
I'm just here chilling with my man K-Dog.